Yeah, the imbalance is fairly obvious. I've got to say I was pretty impressed with how he dealt with the initial attacks. That's very, very good from Undead. Obviously, he's got some pretty solid defense mechanics down. The problem is he was simply then out-macroed, which is... People keep saying that the way into Diamond is to macro, 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 and nothing else really matters. Would you say that's true?
To a certain extent, yes.
There you go, folks. If you want to get into Diamond, learn how to macro. And that seems to be Undead's weakness at the moment. He's pretty good in the defense. Well, we'll see how he does it against Merz once again. Grandmaster player, one of the best Terran in Europe. And I bring you Merz. He is in the yellow trunks, and he is playing Terran to the west of the Metalopolis versus his opponent, Undead. He is in the blue trunks. He is playing Zerg to the south. And
back to that point you made, I think macro is probably the highest fundamental point issue there. Aside from that, I think the other points are stuff like scouting, build orders, so that people mess up on strategies and so on and so on. But overall, macro is probably the biggest thing that will determine a player, because within the first 2 or 3 minutes or whatever of a game, even though that is so fast, realistically, a player of any caliber shouldn't make any mistakes whatsoever. I mean, you can literally play on the same standard as Merz for the first 2 or 3 minutes, but then as multitasking comes in and other aspects of the game that you have to deal with, that's when it will kind of break down and become a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly. And any of you that play Starcraft 2 will, of course, be completely aware of that. You probably spent a lot of time sort of practicing that initial opening, trying to nail it down, getting the timings right and things like that. And then it's after that when, of course, you're forced to start making decisions. You're forced to pay attention to more than one thing at a time. The things start to fall back. And obviously, past that point, every time you make a small mistake, every time you cost yourself a few seconds, that's what puts your opponent further and further ahead. And Merz really doesn't make those kind of mistakes anymore. He is to the point where that is now a non-issue. We've got Undead opening here with a pool and an extractor as opposed to a fast expansion.
So basically, to compare like a Grandmaster to a Gold League, for example, what we're seeing here, when a Gold League player opens up the game, he builds a drone and splits his units. That's as precise as that can be. That is what Merz does for the entire of the game, basically, like 20 minutes long, is that precise. With a Gold League player, that stops. Like after the 10 supply mark, that starts to break down. But it will stay consistent for Merz, not skipping a single second throughout the entire game. And we do have another 2 racks from Merz, 12, 13 supply. The racks does go down. The second rack, sorry, has not been scouted though by Undead, and it will be lifted up and put on the lower ground to be more aggressive with.
The so-called Maka rack strategy is made famous by Maka Prime, the Korean player. Whatever the case, there you go, down it goes. And this is a really popular map to do that on as well, certainly because of the way that the actual main is set up. There, you look at the size of this cliff face, and you look at how you can easily put it there, pick it up, drop it. Suddenly, that's halfway to the enemy base if you're in close there.
Indeed, it is. And Merz getting a little bit supply block because there was a delay on that supply depot because the drone was delaying it. But now we do have 3 Marines in pursuit. We do have an SCV as well. And Undead actually opting to go Extractor into spawning pool, taking off 2 once speed upgrade has been done. And this is a lot safer kind of build. But the problem is now is that Merz can wall you in with a bunker on the lower ground, can build a bunker on the higher ground, can extend a wall off on the low ground as well. There's so many options for him here to do.
Yeah, he wants to be careful with that Queen. Undead doesn't want to get that caught off creep. He does want to try and defend that Overlord if possible. He's bringing a few Zerglings around the side. Unfortunately, they are now off creep, so that makes things a little bit trickier. And spawning fire from the ground as well. And abusing this cliff face right here is crucial to trying to kill as many Zerglings as possible without taking any real damage. And it's done on a lot of different maps like that, but it works really well here. Here comes the aggression from Merz. He doesn't want that spine crawler to go down. He prefers just to gut the middle line if at all possible. Wants to try and end this one nice and quick. And he seems to be able to do that without too much of a problem. Continuing to reinforce from that barracks on the low ground.
So what we've had now is 2 drone kills from Merz. He's going to go in and done a lot of damage to all these lings. A lot of lings do pop out and they're about to get speed. So I think he's going to be able to clean this up any second now. But at the same time, the same as before, Merz has already expanded. The bottom barracks can now be lifted up and put into the main base. These 2 Marines, though, these 3 Marines actually, because he doesn't cancel the last one, are, well, the remaining survivors from the initial attack, but cleaned up from this wave here. 1 Marine does get away, and now Merz can, he's got double gas going. He can immediately throw down a factory once he gets up to 100 gas and can advance into the mid game quite easily. And the difficult point now for Undead is at 13 drones versus 22 SCVs and double mules.
Macro. But his defense is really strong. That's certainly a fundamental that will help him grow as a player. But he has to work on his macro in order to make sure that that defense actually matters. If you're spending too much time defending, Bear in mind, Merz was expanding behind that. He was doing all of this at the same time, whereas Undead was focused purely on defending. So as a direct result, he is completely lagged behind, and you can see there on the Inca comparison that Merz has a clear advantage, and you can see there on the drone comparison as well. And once again, this fairly early layer upgrade from Undead.
Yeah, I'm still questioning that. It's a bit of a bad decision because what did Olaire really give him last game? Understandably, he got centrifugal hooks, which is the only upgrade he actually got and used in the game. But when that initial push came from Merz, he didn't even have any bailing. So why did you have centrifugal hooks? It doesn't make too much sense to go for a layer this early. Taking a gas. When you take a second gas this early, you're not only investing in gas, you're taking 6 away in total to mine gas from what you could have on minerals.
Yep.
And he's just so far behind, you know. I mean, he's at 21 drones, but now he's got double gas, which means 6 taken away from that. Is 15 working SCBs or drones on minerals is so low for this point of the game.
Yeah, it really, really is. Denies the scout. Nicely done there by Undead, although I have to suspect that Merz will expect there to be an expansion by this point, even against a player of lower standing. We've got 6 more drones, so Undead is droning up pretty hard right now, which is probably a good idea. His opponent simply working on Marines and tanks and stim at the moment, and this time Undead actually going for a fast Spire, which I think is probably a smarter decision than the Baneling centrifugal hooks upgrade he went for earlier.
It's good, but it's too fast. I mean, it's just way too fast. This is, the Spire now is on a regular timing. It's actually faster than a regular timing without any harassment. And he got harassed and he lost drones. So it's just way too fast for this game. He doesn't have enough drones whatsoever. He's at 36 supply at this point of the game at 9 minutes is so low. 26 drones versus 35. And even if he gets Mutalisk out, he's going to literally have a maximum of 5. A really maximum of 5. You want to be building out 7, 8. And +1. So including +1, he's going to be able to build like 4 Mutalisks maybe, if he's lucky. And against all these Marines, if Merz just goes for another timing attack when Stim finishes, 4 Mutalisks against all these Marines and tanks, it's not going to work. No, it really, really will not. Mutalisks work best when you have a very large group, when you have critical mass, when you can do enough damage, say, to overwhelm a missile turret or to overwhelm a small group of Marines or anything like that, and he doesn't really have that. Charging right into the middle right there, there is a deployed siege tank up, but it didn't take out, I think maybe 1 Marine went down there, but it didn't really make too much of a difference. And a lot of Zerglings sort of thrown away right there to gain really minimal information. Spire is up, and Undead has a ton of gas, but he doesn't have the minerals, as I said before. Look at the saturation, or the lack thereof, on this natural right here. There's maybe 4 or 5 drones on it. 4 drones when saturation is a minimum of 16. That's like pretty bad. Merz is skipping an engineering bay, he's skipping an armory, he's skipping turrets. This guy doesn't care right now. No. He's not playing defensive, he's not, you know, adapting to the regulars' timings because he knows he doesn't have to. At this point in the game, you should already have turrets up. You should have the engineering bay making upgrades already. But Merz knows that he doesn't need to do that because of this difference in skill. Yeah, absolutely. He can just now barrel down and destroy Undead. That will get us fairly rapid into our next game, which of course will be a Masters versus Masters game. So we will be able to cast something that is fairly equal. There we go. Merz rolling in. In the meantime, a couple of Mutalisks come in. 2. Yeah, two mutas. That's fair. Unfortunately, it looks like 2 Marines will be able to clean that up quite easily. There we go. That's a day for Terran players when they can say, I cleaned up your Mutalisk with 2 Marines. That is a day. The main problem being that now 3 missile turrets are there, so his plan is to directly attack them in a gesture of defiance. And the medevac's out now. There's nothing to stop these Marines dying. They're getting healed up all the time. And unfortunately for Undead, that's going to be the end of his upper bracket run. He will get knocked down into the lower bracket where he can continue in this tournament, but that is it for his